I got to go to the event over the weekend, a manipulated halving of the supply of Bitcoin. Up today, last time I looked up $1,400, 66,000. What does that mean for the cajillion dollars in Bitcoin ETFs?
Yeah, right now it's a little bit of a holding pattern. The flows have been, a little bit, a couple outflows here, a couple inflows there, but that second wave I spoke of the past couple weeks has definitely died down. We'll see if we get a third wave. So right now we're holding at about net 12.5 billion since they launched, which to me, if that's all they get this whole year, that's a success. That's how big that number is. But we'll see what happens. I think that the prices holding pattern is interestingly intertwined with the flows holding pattern. Maybe one of them is waiting to go up, but they tend to be in a spiral together for now. I think the ETFs are one of the biggest catalysts. There's definitely algos trading off of the ETF flows, so there's almost like an amplification effect. So we'll see what happens with the ETF flows this week. One good news, though, is GBTC's outflows continue to get lower. So they're now in the double
digits. That's the Grayscale?
Yeah, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust that converted with 28 billion. It's now down to, I think, 20 billion, but has seen 16 billion of outflows. That's been a weight on this, but the 12.5 billion is net of those outflows. But GBTC seeing less and less is a good sign, but the 9 new ones have also seen less and less inflows. So we're kind of at this sort of, like I said, it's just sort of a breather. And that makes sense. ETF flows for something like that would be hot sauce like this tend to be somewhat correlated with price. But there's some catalysts coming up. I think a large chunk of advisors haven't even looked at this yet. They like to wait a couple months. The wirehouses, they're not really able to solicit them yet. So, and you got no options on them yet. That could come down the road. So there's some good optimistic catalysts, but of course, Bitcoin's price can do crazy things, and that's a huge variable.
Is BlackRock just going to own this space too?
Yeah, I mean, I just tweeted today, they've now seen 69 straight days of inflows. Basically, right out of the gate, flows every day. That's basically in the top 10 all time. And it's the most highest streak of any ETF by far that's active right now. So they're loving it. I mean, Larry Fink was on a different channel about 2 weeks ago, and he was grinning ear to ear like a proud father about IBIT. He's like, this is the greatest launch in ETF history. Now, keep in mind, BlackRock has 1,000 ETFs across the world. They've got a bunch of other businesses. He rarely brings up individual ETFs, and here he is talking about this one ticker, which, by the way, listen to this stat. Out of those 1,000 ETFs in the world, IBIT accounts for 24% of all their net flows this year.
Wow. Well, there's a generational thing going on here. Do you notice this, Paul? On the other side, Balchunas and Lisa, they're like incredibly cut and chiseled.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I could barely keep in this. Your perspective on the death of the mutual fund business. Paul and I live this, each in our own way. When do they roll up and go home?
Yeah, this is a very complicated...
It's complicated.
It's complicated. In most businesses, if you lose customers, you probably get acquired or you got a business. Like in a mall, if you sell candlesticks and the customer stops coming, it's over, right?
Right.
Maybe a month you have and then you're out. The thing with mutual funds is you can lose customers and still make more money if the market goes up. So you got all these mutual funds that came into this last bull market, we'll call since 2008.
Yeah.
They had trillions of dollars. So even though they've seen trillions of outflows, the market's gone up, 3-4-fold? So the value of their portfolios is gigantic. So equity and mutual funds, this stat will blow your mind. It makes my head hurt. Have seen $3 trillion of outflows in the past 10 years. Right? Makes sense, that's the story.
Yeah.
But their assets grew by $6 trillion.
Wow.
So they're doing fine.
Yep.
But they're losing customers. It's a mirage asset. So, and they know this. So what I like to say is the writing's on the wall. They can see the writing on the wall. They know they're making as much money as ever, but they know the customers are leaving. So a lot of them are moving over to the ETF space to try to be where the customers are.
Are they successfully moving over to the ETF space?
Yes, but success means a little cannibalization, and some are more willing to do it than others.
Right.
JP Morgan's a great example. Got cheap quick and is having huge success. I think the more diversified a company is, like JP Morgan has so much going on.
They can do
Jamie
it.
Dimon might not even be aware of what they're doing. That those people hire an ETF person and they create a true ETF business. The tough ones are the mutual fund companies, like say a Federated or MFS, where all they have is the mutual funds. It's harder for them to eat their own arm off.
Yeah, get one more in here, Paul.
So, I mean, where, other than the Bitcoin space, where are we seeing fund flows these days? We just had Joanne Bianco on from the bond blocks. They're seeing flows and going into high yield and so on and so forth. Where are you seeing kind of the flows these
let me
days?
give you a great example. So emerging markets. Emerging markets kind of been a little, off lately.
Yep.
But there's one ETF that's taken in 4 times the flows of any other, and it's a non-obvious one, EMXC. This is the iShares Emerging Markets ex China. This thing is now $13 billion. This is like I said, they grow up so fast sometimes. So if you have no China in your EM, your ETFs are flying off the shelves. If you have China in your EM ETF, you can't sell it.